Hello, Grace. Welcome back to our reading plan. We are on May 27th reading, and we're starting a new book today, the book of Proverbs. Now, Proverbs, often you think of it as being those short, pithy sayings, two sentences that are easy to hold on to, maybe to grab on for certain situations. And the book of Proverbs does have a good amount of that, but that is not all of what Proverbs offers. There are three main sections of this book. The first is chapters 1 through 9. And that is speeches from a father to a son, or from King Solomon to his son. And they give us kind of the backdrop of what this book is about. That we are to learn to be wise in certain situations, and that we are to avoid sinful situations as sinful people. And then the next section of the book are the pithy maxims that are to communicate specific situations, how we are to live and interact. And there are some of these proverbs that maybe seem contradictory to each other. And some people will point that out as, wow, the Bible is not true. Well, there are certain situations where you have to do one or the other. And it requires understanding wisdom to be able to look at a situation, and even though it's the same situation, maybe the people involved, you need to interact with them differently because of who they are. And that is what we're going to see later on. And then we got the third section, which is closing out the book, and then it gives us this wonderful chapter 31, Proverbs 31 woman. And that is super interesting, but I'm not going to get into that now. Let's get back to our reading for the day. The first 7 verses are the prologue of this book of Proverbs, and provides us the purpose statements of what we should be reading. Whenever you read a book, you do want to look at the beginning, and you also want to make sure that you're connecting that to the ending as well, because usually the authors will say what we're going to learn, and they're going to make sure that this is what we learned, and if you didn't learn that, you got to go back and read it. And so the first 7 verses are that for us. And it says this, here's the purposes, The purpose, to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. Second purpose, to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, to help them do what is right, just, and fair. Those are the 2 purposes of this book, that people reading it will become disciplined, become wise, will be insightful, and will be able to be disciplined, to live successful lives and to do what is right. And here's verse 7, which is one of the most famous verses, and that is, fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Now, people get caught up on the word fear because they're like, oh, I don't want to be afraid of God. But I think that there's some healthy afraidness of God, right? I mean, think about being on top of the Hoover Dam. If you've been up there, you see that the engineering behind it is magnificent, and you can see that and be in awe of this engineering feat. But then you look over the edge and you can say, wow, if I'm not careful, this could end badly for me. And so you have this healthy fear of what could happen if you're not careful on top of the Hoover Dam. But you also see the magnificence of it. And so that is what we are to see with God. We have this awe and reverence, but also recognize that there is something to be feared here, be afraid of, and that is that we can't trifle with God. He is not a God to be trifled with, and that is what this fear means. And so if we understand this, we understand that if we're going to be wise, we're going to fear the Lord. If we're going to fear the Lord, then we're going to learn wisdom. Now, the next couple sections have interesting personifications of wisdom and sin. We see that wisdom is personified as a woman, and she calls out to the people in the end of chapter 1. Wisdom shouts in the streets. She cries out in the public square. She calls to the crowds, and she's like, don't be simple. I'm right here for you. And then the next verse 25, you ignore my voice. And it says, verse 28, when they cry for help, I will not answer. Now, we'll read these again in the prophets. And that is that God is calling out, and we have to respond. And if we don't respond, then he's not going to answer. Maybe we've already read this before, but this is important for us to see, is that wisdom is connected to knowing God, and actually is connected to God, right? And we see Jesus saying this when he's in the temple, is that Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I long to hold you and how I long to cover you like a hen to the chicks. And so we see wisdom is saying the same thing here. And that is important for us to see as Christians, because Ephesians 1:17 says that we, because of Jesus, can get the spirit of wisdom. The Holy Spirit is the one who gives wisdom. Now, verse 16 of chapter 2 personifies the immoral woman. The immoral woman is anyone who is promiscuous from God, right? Abandons her husband, the commitment to God. And if you abandon God, it's gonna lead to death. So that is what we see the personification. We're going to see that again. But wisdom is this father's advice, Solomon's advice is like, you have to really pursue it. Pursue wisdom. Pursue it so much, because then you'll know what's right, and you'll know God, and you will be able to ignore the sinful people, the immoral woman. And that's what we see here, that wisdom in chapter 4, verse 6, wisdom, don't turn back on wisdom, for she will protect you. Love her and she will guard you. Getting wisdom is the wisest thing you can do, and whatever else you do, develop good judgment. So the father is saying, you have to pursue this, son. You have to pursue it. And if you don't, you will end up going to death where the immoral woman is, and you will end up separated from God. And so that's what we read, what we're going to read today. And I hope you enjoyed the parallelism and kind of this really interesting personification of wisdom and the importance that it plays in our lives. God bless you. See you next time.